We are blessed at Southwest Canada to have someone like Yahya to bring for you to hear, and to bring to campuses and high schools, so that people can hear some voice that is the true Israel. And I think some of you have been in the room when we bring a group of people, not maybe as well spoken as this incredibly brave young man, but we do bring delegations of the real tapestry of Israel, Bedouins, Druze, Muslims, young people who are Israeli citizens and as proud of their country as Yahya is. We'd love to take your questions, but we don't have time for statements, so I apologize in advance that I'm really tough. Please ask your questions. Yes.
Are you still living in the same town, and are your parents supporting you in this journey?
I have to say, I moved out of that town 5 months ago. There was an incident where I made a video for Stay With Us, and in this, I said, I want to be just like any other Israeli. I want to serve my country. I want to go to the IDF. I want to give back. And one of the local news pages saw this video, picked up this video, and took the part where it said, I want to join the IDF, and made it headline news, local news. And that happened at 1 p.m. At 5 p.m., I get a phone call from the police in Al-Fahim, the Israeli police, telling me that they're sending 2 patrol cars to pick me up from my home and to bring some clothes with me. So I go to the police station and file a report. And this was on the night of Passover. What happened was the following. I filed a report. They asked me to get out of the town, and it happened before, unfortunately. So I asked, how many days? He said, no. This time we can't offer you any protection. This time you got to get out of the town permanently. So at 1 a.m. I was thinking to myself, standing on the highway, waiting 40 minutes for the taxi to come, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm reliving Passover. So I passed through Jerusalem. Now I live in the Holy City. My family, for the family part, is my grandmother is Palestinian. She was born and raised in a Palestinian refugee camp. So I have a family in the West Bank. And unfortunately, they work for the Palestinian Authority. Some of them are really high-ranking. And they do not approve of my work. But there's no connection, really. And you got to understand that whenever I started doing this, as I said, I was attacked at first. They realized that I know my facts, that I'm very well educated, they can't stand a chance. They started attacking my family. So my mother, my sister, my uncle, anybody who supported me, anybody who said any public words of support, was harassed at their work, they're walking on the street. How could you support the Zionist in town? So bit by bit, over the period of 3 years, every communication with my family dropped. And after I moved from Jerusalem, I saw the chance of actually starting the process of joining the IDF. In next March, I'll be joining the IDF, the Givati Brigade. Unfortunately, I lost all contact with my family, and I'm drafting as a lone soldier. But I have a very big Jewish family, so to speak. And a lot of Jewish mothers, so I'm very well.
For sure. More in this room, probably. Yeah.
Where do you learn English?
I watched a lot of television. You have grandkids? Television, please. I love any language.
That's okay.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
I have a question to commend your sense of hope and optimism, but when you speak privately with Muslims of your age, for example, you find some are perhaps a little more balanced or open or curious or even subject to possibly changing their thinking?
There is always a possibility to change. Always. Even with the hardest people who don't want to listen, who just ignore you or even try to interrupt you. They don't know anything. It's just a blank sheet. Maybe your pen is not working, but it's just a blank sheet. So I've met people, spoke with people who are interested in Israel, Palestinians, people from Saudi, people from Egypt, from all over the Arab world who are very interested in Israel. But for reasons that I won't mention, before the Arab Spring happened and after, the Middle East changed kind of from the government perspective. So they're more free to speak and ask about Israel now. So we've seen lots and lots of support coming from the from the Arab countries, which is growing. And as Meryl said, we work in Arabic, and we have Stand With Us Arabic, and we have more than 110,000 likes, which are most of them coming from Gaza and the West Bank. What we see on the page is that we get messages of support that sometimes I wish that everybody would understand Arabic just to go through those messages. Because not only that it will replenish your hope meter, so to speak, it will just make you realize that there's a Middle East that you see on the news, and there's an underground of the Middle East that you just simply do not see. Because the Middle East is a bit of as I said, freedom is not something that is widely spread over there. People suffer from oppression, and speaking up and saying you're a Zionist, or even not even saying that you're a Zionist, even saying that you don't disagree that Israel exists, could get you unfortunately executed. So, they are careful whenever the individuals that I speak with. They're careful in wording, in speaking how they speak. Very careful about their identity, exposing their identity. But what I've done since we have I started working with Stand With Us is that we get a lot of messages of support. So I've decided that instead of shaking hands and saying thank you for standing with us, we started building a network of people. Because there are people who should be public faces and speaking, but there's so much work to be done in the background. Translating, keeping an eye on the media, research. So those people are helping us. As we speak, there's a Saudi guy sitting in his house, designing a flyer for the Stand With Us Israel office.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll get you his phone number.
So it sounds like a cliche, but our mission statement says education is the road to peace, and we really believe that.
Is there a possibility of translating some of those, because you say, because I think a lot of us would be very skeptical.
There is
To know that
actually,
there's thousands of Arabic, we have no access to that, maybe we can make a lot more
absolutely,
people want to
absolutely.
hear.
I have a whole presentation called the Social Media, the Underground of the Middle East, and I go step by step of what happened, how the social media changed the Middle East and what role it played, and I show, because one of the subjects that, what subject not to speak about was Israel. And after the Arab Spring, the whole government body changed. The government understood that because social media played a role in the Arab Spring, they realized that social media has a strength, and they kind of backed up away from it. They didn't want to control it as much. So you see lots and lots of support coming about Israel. For example, whenever we had the Haifa fires last year, the amount of support that we got from Saudis, from Iraqis on Twitter was absolutely fantastic. They're still there, and I have a presentation, and it shows screenshots and messages from Stand With Us Arabic. Yeah. Also, everybody, as I say, I speak 3 languages fluently, and I'm very fluent in Google Translate. So, anybody, you have the option of translating any language that you want. So, whenever you see, you can type in Israel, translate it to Arabic, and translate the tweets, the posts that you see. Majority sometimes is not positive. I won't lie to you, but you'll get 1 or 2 publicly. As I said, you can endanger your life for making a public statement in supporting Israel, but people do it. Yes.
A dear friend of mine is a psychologist at Hebrew U in Jerusalem, and she would go into the Arab villages.
Sorry, can you stand up for something?
Sorry,
Here. Go ahead.
she would do work in the Arab villages, going into schools and revamping school systems and teaching educators how to improve the level of education. She did tell me that, we know Israel funds the Arab villages for education, but the materials in these, that's where you'll be able to comment, teach the kids from a very young age. There's a lot of anti-Israel material in there. Can you comment on your education growing up? What the books taught you and what they contain?
Yeah, you raise a very good point. Based if the books actually had anti-Israel stuff in Jerusalem, I would say that's not under the Israeli system.
No, not in Jerusalem.
Where is it?
In the Arab villages.
What Arab villages?
Ah,
West Bank or Israel proper?
That's a good question.
It's all Israel.
So if it has anti-Israel, like publicly stating anti-Israel stuff, there's a good chance that it's not Israel's education. But again, you raise a good point, because me growing up, I was not taught about Jewish history. The following line is what I got about European Jewish history. And I'm sorry for this, but this is what they've taught me. Hitler did a good thing. And this came from my religion teacher. And that is the only subject, that is the only line I were taught about the Holocaust. And in my town, unfortunately, if I had pictures over here, I can show you. There's swastikas everywhere, open support of ISIS. It's quite a mix. But regarding the books and the content, yes, the Ministry of Education funds schools like mine and the booklets that we use. But you got to realize that if the state tries to interfere and say that the book that I'm reading as a student is not pro-Israel enough and introduces another book, the school would just go on strike. Because as I said, the people who control the municipality are the people who goes into the teacher, who becomes a teacher, who works in government buildings. So they just go on strike, and students like me will just sit at home all year long and don't care about me. This is like a summary of the entire conflict. One side doesn't care, and the other side cares. One side uses human shields, and the other side uses its army to protect its civilians. This is the summary of the conflict, and unfortunately it goes into education and everything. Yes, Ryan.
So, just to be really clear, Al-Fahm is inside the green line, like this is actually inside of what everybody internationally calls Israel, right?
Yes, Al-Fahm is one of the biggest Israeli Arab cities. It is within Israel proper, but it's a bit of a unique town, as I said, because it's the stronghold of the anti-Israel movement within Israel. The people who control it are very anti-Israel, and they have controlled it for over than 30 years. And unfortunately, the state of Israel did not pay attention to what was going on inside the town until just a couple of years ago, and they have started rooting the problems out. Yes.
Speaking about education, what do you
Can
think
you
Stand up a little louder.
speaking about education, how do you compare the myth that's being taught by the UNRWA textbooks and Palestinian, the PA textbooks that are being taught to the Arab children? At the same time, Israel, in my opinion, neglects to teach its own children about the truth. So there is the juxtaposition is very much against the students who enter campuses not knowing the truth about it. I'm talking about Israeli or Jewish students who are not aware of the true history of the Jewish people and the true rights of the people to those.
There was recently a campaign that was launched by the Israeli government that encouraged Israelis to learn about their history, where they showed the Roman soldier and stuff knocking on the door, and it was just a movement to encourage Israelis to actually look back into their history and understand their history. Our job here at Stay With Us is to educate her. That we understand that, if you're really motivated, if you really want to make a change, but you don't lack the material and the knowledge, it's going to be really, really hard. And that's why that's where we come into play. People who represent Israel certainly should be educated and should know about the history on both sides, remember history points and what happened back in the day. Whoever is not educated, we're here, along with other organizations who educate. Information is out there. The Israeli government and the UNRWA, unfortunately, the UNRWA educates Palestinians that Israel doesn't exist.
Does everybody know what UNRWA is?
UNRWA is the United Nations Education and Development, something like that. It's an organization that was created shortly after the State of Israel was created. It was voted and created by the Arabs in the UN. And it's an agency made only to solve the Palestinian refugee crisis that the Arabs started in the first place. But unfortunately, what the UNRWA has done is the absolute opposite. They drain funding from the UN, and they have raised the number of refugees, where there are ridiculous laws, so to speak, where if I'm a Palestinian refugee and I have a child, the child is a Palestinian refugee. And therefore, their kids are Palestinian refugees. This is not reducing the number of refugees, this is raising it. So that's why you end up with 5 million Palestinian refugees as a number of the UNRWA. They educate their children in UNRWA schools about that Israel doesn't exist and stuff. There's organizations like Stand With Us, like Shurat Ad-Din, where we had like worked against this. We educated others. There was a report by about 50 incidents of anti-Semitism of teachers within the UNRWA. Most of them were in Gaza and East Jerusalem. But what's really fascinating to me is that right now, I don't know if you follow the news about this subject, most schools in East Jerusalem, which follow the Palestinian education system, are requesting that they follow the Israeli education system. If you just stuff your book with anti-Israel stuff and not actually teach the children, your generation is going to be like anti-Israel, but actually not functioning. Your economy won't function. You won't have jobs. You won't have stuff. So the school actually realizes that our students aren't being taught enough. They're not being taught math and physics. They're being taught to Israel doesn't exist, and with verses from the Quran that incites against the state of Israel and the Jewish people. So they're shifting kind of. They do realize that it's a problem. They even do realize it's a problem, and they're working against it.
I think Dr. Smith is more, right? Dr. Smith?
Well, I was just wondering what the population of your town was.
It is, in 2003 was 50,000, in 2003. But I can tell you that it's much, much higher right now. Officially, it's the third largest town in Israel, but unofficially, it's the second.
Israeli town.
Israeli Arab town, yes. Yes.
So you mentioned at, for example, in South Africa, when on the last day, the BDS people did not show up. So, you squelched that at the demonstration level, but have you actually, or has Stand With Us actually been able to recruit Arab young people like yourself around the world who actually come out and stand up in support of Israel, contrary to their own?
So I'm not the only Arab who works for Stand With Us. I'm a full-time employee, a full-time employee. There are others, maybe full-time, maybe half-time. But we have another educator back home, Muhammad Zwabi, if you heard that name, who's also a Stand With Us educator, have a similar background story. Zwabi might sound like a familiar name because Khanin Zwabi is a Knesset member in the Arab Joint List, and she's a very, very anti-Israel outspoken member of that thing. So Muhammad comes from her clan. He works for Stand With Us. And so there are others. Some are really afraid to speak up. Again, as I said, just put it in perspective, whenever I went to the police station, I was rushing to get to the police station after I've seen the death threats and the comments. And the guy wouldn't even open the door for me because he couldn't understand. He asked me, why are you here? And I'm like, because I posted a selfie. And he didn't open the door because he thought I was kidding. Until somebody actually stopped his car and got out, started running towards us in the street. Then he realized that something is wrong. And we get inside. I'm sitting with one of the officers of the police, and I can see his face that he has no idea what he's doing. There was no manual what to do with a Zionist Arab. He got Zionist Arab. There's no manual at the police. Step A, get him out of his town. So something like that. But the situation
not
is
just in Israel, I'm also talking about on campuses, in Canada, the States.
we're in constant search of what's going on. That's one of my jobs that I do. We have just shown support to an Israeli Arab who works with who plays with an Israeli soccer team who was getting attacked by the BDS and other Arab. We have directed support at him. We have reached out to him. Just like people at Stand With Us reached out to me, I'm reaching out to others and reaching my hand to help as much as we can.
And it's not just for Arabs. We have campus coordinators right across the U.S., and we have many of them are not Jewish because we know we have to reach out to other communities.
Actually, just to answer your question, a lot of what we do as Stand With Us is teach the kids who are interns to run programs that integrate these students. On campus, I didn't have any Jewish students to support me, but I did have the people who are minorities in Israel who saw the importance of standing behind Israel. So I had Ahmadiyya Muslims, Kurds. So it's not just to answer your question, yes, we do, but it all starts with having that program. So they know that that opportunity is available. So that's why Stand With Us is very important in teaching them how to do these kinds of programs that bring these kinds of students to light so that we can connect with them.
So going back to the question that somebody there asked about translating like the Arabic, standard Arabic stuff, I imagine that you have different materials or posts or videos on the Stand Plus Arabic as you do in Stand Plus English.
It's a very different audience.
Right.
Reaching out to an Arab audience is very different from reaching to like non-Jewish audience or a Jewish audience or a left or right wing audience. It really, like, all those standards don't work with an Arab audience because you can't tell where they stand and you can't just generalize, because the reason I am here in front of you today is that because my Jewish coworkers did not generalize me as a person coming from an anti-Israel place and then he believes in that. We can't do that. So we have to be very careful in our approach. Very, very professional, very selective in our points.
So my question is, are there any of those posts available in English also? Like, do you have any?
Most of the relevant content in English is also relevant in Arabic, because most of the news, let's say, that we post is also relevant in Arabic because they're for surely not going to get it from Al Jazeera. So most of the things that we post in English are relevant to the Arab audiences, but sometimes we have to be selective, where if there is the gay parade in Tel Aviv, you don't know how the reaction is going to be. We posted it before. We got good reaction, but some bad reaction as well. So again, selective but but very careful with our materials.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, when you go on tour, like say the U.S., Canada, are you able to speak to Arab student population? Like, are they because they've been here or they've grown up here as second generation? Are you able to converse or able to talk with open minds?
As soon as I get to like a campus or an event, or like as soon as like I know that I'm going to a university, my first request is to reach out to the Muslim Association, to send their representatives to come listen to us, to come have a conversation with us. Unfortunately, the answer is officially no.
All of the time, even in Canada?
All the time. In Canada, I can't tell you right now, but I have just came from London, where I spoke in a couple of universities in London, in Leeds and in Edinburgh, and we have got a no, 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 and no.
Wow. And what about in communities here where they have like an imam, so an imam that would embrace and say,
I would be
we
happy.
want to hear.
I would be happy to go
that
to a mosque.
opportunity?
I would be happy to go and have a conversation with the community, the Muslim community here. It's just that we're going to need a lot of security.
Also, as a community, we have reached out to Ahmadiyya Muslims because I've worked with the women, and they very quietly have come to synagogues and temples with me. But we are not permitted, even as women, to go and listen at their mosques because we're Jewish. So it's a different society. Andrew.
I was just going to ask you about what you just mentioned, the security. So when you went to Johannesburg, you said several times, I got a lot of support from Stand With Us. It was very much time, I got a lot of support. So I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on what you meant by that, you got a lot of support. And did you have a security team, just in terms of your physical safety?
I had a security team. It was kind of funny because I was walking around with like big guys just like this, like with me. What happened was, when I say support, I really mean support. Wherever we're on the second day after we got physically attacked, the university said like, oops, we're not getting into this, let the students just kill each other on campus and we don't care. South Africa is very different than the universities over here. Where the university just tried to like distance itself from what was going on, and like they let the violence just riot. So what Stand With Us did is that we reached out to the alumni of the university from the Jewish community, who sometimes send money donations to the university, and said we're very unhappy about what just happened. So we build networks of alumni, of students. If you're following us on social media, just like Chanel said, follow us on Facebook, not just to like our posts, but there's a call for actions. Whoever signed up for our newsletter at the front, whenever there's something going on, let's say whenever I was in South Africa, there was a call for action. There was a call for action because as I said, the university was not complying. The BDS was breaking everything that we have and attacking us, and in South Africa, the police are not allowed on campus, and the campus security are just not there. So we ask people on our page to actually go. We have a template that's ready. You put in your name and your email address, and you hit send. And you're from your email. It shoots like the email, the template that we have to the chair of like the student affairs or like the head of the university, and they get filled with emails that are saying from people like you who are saying like, I am not happy. Please change the situation. So again, showing support in that kind of sense. Also supporting students on the campus, providing materials. Before this week begins, we send somebody to give the students a refresh on what is Israel. We send materials for free. We educate them, we give them sessions. What's the best approach to this, to that, to every group? As Meryl said, and as Chanel said, there are other groups to reach out to. It's not a closed circle of like only Jews who support Israel. Literally right next to the Jewish Union student, there was a Baha'i Muslim center, and they were partnering with them. So it's not only that. And so support like that, reaching out to the students, reaching out, helping people whenever help is needed, directing the thing, because you want to support Israel, you want to do something. But if we're sitting here in Canada, not realizing what is going on in South Africa, you might have a good potato kugel and a good night's sleep, But yeah.
Hi, could you identify any non-Muslim organizations that have allied with you or have given you positive responses?
I can redirect you to our PR department, which can actually answer you properly on that.
And I can tell you also that last year they did a count and stand with us because we're considered a resource organization and we have partnerships with organizations all over the world for everything we do. We partnered with 740 organizations last year in North America. So that means campus organizations, community organizations.
Give me 2 or 3 examples.
Here we work with PLL, we work with CEJA.
U.S.
Non-Jewish.
Oh, non-Jewish.
Non-Muslim, non-Jewish.
International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem. We work with them, often partner with them, have for the longest time. But there are also...
Well, you partner with them, I'm sorry, but...
Oh, we
actually
work together to bring young people together to hear speakers like Yahya, or to come to programs that...
They help you promote your meetings and things like that? Or?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They sure do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
One more question, sir.
How Islamic are you? How religious are you?
How religious am I?
Yeah.
That's a very hard question to ask, but I used to pray 5 times a day. I was hosted on the local news page because I was 12, and I used to go to the prayer at 5 a.m. in the morning every day. And today, with life, with whatever just happened, I feel it hard because I can't simply just go to a mosque over here because I might get attacked. So bit by bit, like something like that, unfortunately, I was forced to become less and less religious because of this. I find myself in more synagogues than mosques, I'll tell you that. But yeah, I'm religious, I mean. There's no, in the Muslim community, there's no Orthodox or Reform Muslim or this, there's just Muslim.
So do you have any issues since you become a Zionist with your own religion?
Not really. The Zionism has nothing not connected to my religion at all. The term Zionism, the actions of Zionism, the things I do for Israel, don't block me from like going to a mosque or praying or fasting on Ramadan. Not really. I can't really see the connection between.
I think that's a good segue to our closing story. Before I do that, on behalf of all of us, I want to thank Yahya for his sincerity. There's a story I'd like to share about John Bassett. Anybody remember John Bassett from background broadcasting and CTV? He met Ben Gurion, who came to Canada in the early 1960s. And John Bassett tells Ben Gurion that I'm a Zionist. And Ben Gurion says to John Bassett, you can't call yourself a Zionist. And Bassett says, why? Because I'm not Jewish? No. Zionists are only people who live in Israel. You don't live in Israel, you can't call yourself a Zionist. And John Bassett looks back at Ben Gurion and says, excuse me, the cause of Zionism and the cause of Israel is so important to the future of the world. Please don't limit it to only people who live in Israel. I am a Zionist. I think it's only one time where Ben Gurion lost an argument. So it's a great story, and Yahya reminds us that we need to reach out. We need Israelis and Arabs and Christians and Armenians and Jews and Muslims and Druze and Hindu and Black. We can't just speak to ourselves. We have to reach out to others, and this is a great example of having a wonderful ally. So before we conclude with Atikva, I'd like just to announce a couple upcoming programs here at Habonim. 2 programs, part of Holocaust Education Week. The first program is Sunday, November 5th, to look a Nazi in the eye at a teen's account of a war criminal trial. I run the March of the Living, and one of our young people, Jordana Leibowitz, on her own at 19 years of age, flew off to Germany with 3 Canadian Holocaust survivors, Max Eisen and Bill Bleed and Hetty Boyum, and covered the travel in a beautiful book which is coming out this fall. She's now 21. How many people at 21 wrote a book? This is a story that she's going to be telling here at 11 o'clock on Sunday, November the 5th. And that evening, another program called March for Remembrance of Hope, which is a Holocaust education program for a multi-faith audience. We have a group of students here presenting a program called Without Words, Examining the Holocaust and the Experience of First Nations in Canada. One of our students made a film comparing and contrasting her mother, who was a residential school survivor, with the experience of a Holocaust survivor. The parallels are really interesting. We're having a discussion about that. So these are 2 great programs. Sunday, November 5th, the first one at 11 o'clock in the morning, and the second one at 8 o'clock in the evening, both here at Congregation Habonim. So with that in mind, I'd like you all to stand with us as we close with Atikva. Please join me. Oh, I have one last question out here. Did you put on tefillin this morning? Just kidding. So please join us for Atikva. Oh, Thank you. Let us shalom go in peace. Have a good evening.